welcome to Tales of Honor Podcast, a podcast dedicated to telling the true stories of the Congressional Medal of Honor. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Tales of Honor Podcast. I'm your host, Christoph Ambrosch. Tonight's episode 86, and it's being brought to you by Combat Flip-Flops. Who are they? Well, glad you asked. They are a veteran-owned apparel company with a mission to create peaceful, forward-thinking opportunities for self-determined entrepreneurs affected by conflict. Is this something I wrote down? Absolutely it is. But what does it mean? I'm also glad you asked. This means helping educate Afghan women and girls. It also means helping remove unexploded landmines and other ordnance in Laos. And it also means supporting the members and families of the Special Operations community, because Combat Flip-Flops is flipping the view on how wars are won. Business, not bullets. And now, a tale of honor. William Henry Johnson, commonly known as just Henry, was born on the 15th of July, 1892 in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, according to the draft registration. Other dates were used on other documents, so the exact date of birth isn't quite known. In his early teens, though, Henry moved to Albany, New York, and worked as a red cap porter at the Albany Union Station. He enlisted in the U.S. Army on the 5th of June, 1917, with the all-black New York National Guard's 15th Infantry Regiment, which once activated into federal service, the unit was redesignated as the 369th Infantry Regiment. Upon their arrival in France, the 369th joined the 185th Infantry Brigade, and General Pershing loaned the 369th to the 161st Division of the French Army. The unofficial reason this happened was said to be that white U.S. soldiers refused to fight alongside black soldiers. The French Army had no problem with these reinforcements and welcomed the 369th, which would leave France as one of the most highly decorated units, and they would later be known as the Harlem Hellfighters. It was Henry's actions on the 15th of May, 1918, that would earn him the Medal of Honor. The citation reads, "For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty, Private Johnson distinguished himself by acts of gallantry and intrepidity above and beyond the call of duty while serving as a member of Company C, 369th Infantry Regiment, 93rd Division, American Expeditionary Forces during combat operations against the enemy on the front lines of the Western Front in France on May 15, 1918. Private Johnson and another soldier were on sentry duty at a forward outpost when they received a surprise attack from a German raiding party consisting of at least 12 soldiers. While under intense enemy fire and despite receiving significant wounds, Private Johnson mounted a brave retaliation, resulting in several enemy casualties. When his fellow soldier was badly wounded, Private Johnson prevented him from being taken prisoner by German forces. Private Johnson exposed himself to grave danger by advancing from his position to engage an enemy soldier in hand-to-hand combat. Wielding only a knife and gravely wounding himself, Private Johnson continued fighting and took his bolo knife and stabbed it through an enemy soldier's head. Displaying great courage, Private Johnson held back the enemy force until they retreated. Private Johnson's extraordinary heroism and selflessness above and beyond the call of duty are in keeping with the highest traditions of military service and reflect great credit upon himself, his unit, and the United States Army. In addition to the Medal of Honor, Henry also earned the nickname Black Death, and his story first got national attention on the 24th of August, 1918, in the Saturday Evening Post with an article called Young Black Joe. Henry also received the French Croix de Guerre, which is France's highest award for bravery, and Henry was the first American to receive it. In February of 1919, a victory parade on Fifth Avenue in New York City was held, and Henry, along with his regiment, participated. He then took part of a series of lecture tours in which he was paid to talk about racial harmony in the trenches. One night in St. Louis, Henry instead spoke about the abuse black soldiers received, including the refusal of sharing the trenches. A warrant was then issued for the arrest of Henry for wearing his uniform beyond the date of his enlistment, and his paid lectures stopped. Records show that in 1927, a permanent and total disability rating was given to Henry as a result of his tuberculosis, and he did receive monthly compensation and regular visits by the Veterans Bureau medical personnel until his death on the 1st of July, 1929. In June of 1996, President Clinton posthumously awarded Henry the Purple Heart for his injuries, and in February of 2003, the Distinguished Service Cross was posthumously awarded as well. Henry's Medal of Honor was presented to Command Sergeant Major Lewis Wilson of the New York National Guard by President Obama on the 2nd of June 2015 on behalf of Henry, since he had no living relatives. William Henry Johnson is buried in Arlington National Cemetery, Section 25, Lot 64. And that was A Tale of Honor. Thank you so much for listening to Tales of Honor podcast. I know you like this podcast, so please be sure to leave a nice review, a good rating, and tell your friends and family. You can see more information on Facebook, Instagram, and at talesofhonorpodcast.com. If you have any questions or comments, you can send them to talesofhonorpodcast@gmail.com. And until next time, I'm Christoph Ambrosch. Thanks for listening.